Warabihime, aka Daki. Let's start with her outfit. She's a very beautiful woman, but when you look at her kimono, it's not that flashy. It looks pretty normal. I wondered why that is, and I found the answer in the Yukaku arc, episode 7, when Gyutaro was announced. The pattern on her kimono and the pattern on Gyutaro's armband. It's the same design. This was a form of foreshadowing that Gyutaro always had her back. If you try anything with her, he was there to protect her. And it gets more interesting. Look at her feet. Compared to the original series, they oversimplified the pattern, but anyways, what is the flower on her kimono? It looked like plums at first, but that wasn't it. They were flowers of strawberries. Why strawberries? Well, some say that strawberries used to be sold wrapped in straws, and that's how they got their name. And that's not all. The flower language of these flowers, they had multiple meanings. 1, a happy home. 2, foresight. 3, you make me happy. And all these words, they got nothing to do with Daki. She was not born into a happy home. And like Gyutaro said, she wasn't very smart, so she had no foresight either. She wasn't smart enough to realize that her actions had consequences. That's why she ended up stabbing that man in his eyes when he made fun of her brother. Then, you make me happy. She worked as an entertainer, pleasing her customers all her life. So all the things that strawberry flowers represent, they've got nothing to do with her, so I thought I was wrong. But then I realized that the flower was on the backside of her kimono. So Gyutaro, he always wanted good things for her, but he could never give them to her, and maybe that's why the flowers were printed on her back. That's what I think, at least. Oh, and another interesting fact. When we see Muzan talking with Daki, every time Muzan says something, she says, "Yes, yes, Lord Muzan." She says yes twice for some reason, and maybe she was speaking for Gyutaro as well. You can't just ignore Muzan when he's talking to you, so... Now moving on, next we'll look at Daki's belt and hair ornament. First, the flower we see here. I think this is a spotted laurel. The flower language here is young and beautiful. Daki is an entertainer who doesn't get old, so makes sense, right? And the other meaning is unchanging love. This represents the way she feels about her brother, that they'll always be together. And the hair ornaments? They looked like fruits of spotted laurel blossoms in the winter. And that scene where we see the strong bond they have? It was in the middle of winter, so that makes sense too. I also found something a bit scary. That yellow line we see in the belt? I believe this represents a rope. When she was a human, she got tied up and got burned alive, and the pain she felt, the grudge, these things are still inside her, and maybe it symbolizes her hatred towards humans. Also, take a look at the strange patterns in the background. This one, it took me a while to figure out. That's why it took me so long to make this video. It all came together in episode 7 of the anime series. I initially had 2 theories about this. The first one, it's a bit of a reach, but I thought it represented some kind of cracks. There's no pattern to it, and back in the Yukaku arc, she always used a mirror. Mirrors are an essential item for women like her, and when you heat it up long enough, it cracks. And she was burned alive, so I thought it had something to do with that. But then it was kind of a reach. But then my other theory, this started to make much more sense after watching the anime. I thought the pattern represented a snake, but I had nothing to back up this theory. Snake skin usually has a nice pattern to it, and we saw this with Kaburamaru. The pattern on his skin was nothing like the one on her belt. And another thing, Inosuke referred to it as a worm in one of the episodes, so maybe it wasn't a snake at all. And I was ready to give up this theory, but then I made a shocking discovery. The original anime, episode 7, we see Gyutaro wearing an armband. In the original manga, it was a snake skin pattern. And we saw them playing with snakes too, so this didn't surprise me at all. But then, in the anime, the design was simplified. It was the same design as Daki's kimono. Now this is where it gets a bit complicated, but bear with me. In the original manga, the armband on his arms have a snakeskin pattern, but in the anime, the design was simplified. But what these things represent, that remains unchanged. So, Gyutaro in the original manga equals the Gyutaro in the anime, which also equals Daki, which means this is a snakeskin pattern for sure. And that's not all. In the Yukaku arc, I said over and over again that the Benzaiten would play a critical role. We saw the Benzaiten multiple times in both the original and the anime. She's the goddess of the Yukaku who watches over the women, and she has a snake under her control. But at the time, Daki and Gyutaro had control over the snake. This was their way of showing that they were in control now, that the Yukaku was theirs now, and that the goddess was gone. But then morning came and Yukaku was saved, thanks to Tanjiro and the others for taking them out. And there were two characters in the Yukaku arc that caught my attention. Something felt really off about them, you know? At first it felt like they didn't belong in this arc. The first one is Obanai Iguro. We see him with the snake. A white snake arrives at the Yukaku, Benzaiten gets revived, and peace returns to the Yukaku. I think that's what they represent here. But it gets more interesting. We learn in the last episode that Kaburamaru ends up with Kanao. And in the Yukaku arc, we saw Douma. I thought it was irrelevant at first, but he took in Gyutaro and Ume, and Kanao got taken in by the Kocho sisters, and the Kocho sisters and Douma, they're mortal enemies. So I knew there was some kind of connection here. So I did some research on Kanao. She's originally from Mukaijima Sumidaku, which is pretty close to my home. Then it hit me. This area, it used to be a Hanamachi, a district where the geisha used to live. Just like Ume, Kanao almost got sold, but they ended up leading completely different lives. Let's take a look. Daki had a kind and caring brother. Kanao, on the other hand, had a sister who she loved very much. And when it comes to Daki, her brother gets left behind. But for Kanao, she's the one that gets left behind. And Daki, she got taken out by Tanjiro. And Kanao, she ended up marrying him. It's the complete opposite. So my guess is when Gotouge Sensei was working on the Yukaku arc, Sensei already had all this planned out and set everything up for the Infinity Castle arc. And all of it comes together in the battle between the Kocho sisters and Douma, who took in Daki. So, before all this, I had no idea why Douma made an appearance in the Yukaku arc, but the pieces started coming together. And as for Obanai Iguro, he was a bit misleading, but it was Kaburamaru who played an important role. He led us to Kanao. Anyways, this is all just speculation, so I might be wrong, but it was still a lot of fun to think about. Honestly, I'm not trying to be right about anything. As a series, Demon Slayer has a lot of unanswered questions, and I think Gyutaro'S sensei left those gaps there on purpose, and it's up to the readers to fill those voids however they want. Their imagination is their limit. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. That's all for now. For more Demon Slayer theories, please like and subscribe for more videos. See you soon.